Neen, welcome.
What a treat to be with you. Oh my gosh.
I've been looking forward to this. Tell everybody who you are, what you're all about, and what this is.
What you're holding is my new body of work. So I'm an attention expert. I grew up in corporate business in Australia. I worked in retail, banking, telecommunications, and the oil industry. Not a lot of chicks in oil, as you can imagine, but definitely a high-risk industry. I am obsessed with getting the world to pay attention. I think that when we pay attention, we have deeper relationships. Companies make more money. We are accountable for what we do. And so I'm often called the Energizer Bunny for meetings. As you know, as a keynote speaker, I love to speak around the world on this topic. And I think clients come to me because they often say, you know, there's never enough hours in the day, or there's so much to do, they don't know where to focus first, or maybe they're just overwhelmed. And so I fix that with my keynotes and my executive mentoring and the book, Attention Pays. So I guess that's how our topics are so aligned, right? What you and I believe in the world. And so I was so honored to be invited to be part of your amazing program.
I was so excited to have you, or I am so excited to have you. And especially because, I've rebranded the podcast. It was the Crisis Intelligence Podcast. Now it's more in line with my brand, which is the Invincible Brand Podcast, which opens up the scope. So it's not just crisis management and strategy, but it's everything that encompasses being crisis ready from a cultural perspective and component, and everything that means to me, which is serving people above process and bottom line, and the whole culture of the organization, inward to outward, being crisis ready, but also living and breathing this wonderful culture where you empower and train your employees to make smart decisions in the heat of the moment.
Right.
So to clarify with all of our listeners and viewers, how does attention pays, or how does attention pay, whether it's the book, whether it's the training that you do, but really the whole concept, how does that fit into crisis readiness and brand invincibility?
I think it's an easy fit. We pay attention in three ways, Melissa. Personally, which is who deserves your attention. That's about being thoughtful. Professionally, which is about what deserves your attention. That's about being productive. And thirdly, globally, which is how do we pay attention in the world? And that's about being responsible. And when you think about the premise of being thoughtful, being productive, and being responsible, it so neatly ties into exactly what you're on this mission to do in the world. I think we really need to start paying attention, whether it is to the brand of us as a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, or whether it's the brand of our corporation or the nonprofit that we run, or maybe it's the government department that we're part of, right? And so when we think about attention and truly creating this invincible brand, we have to pay attention to the relationships we have, to the processes and procedures that we have in place, and how we show up in the world. And we have this responsibility to be the best version of ourselves, and within a company, or whether we run our own company, that is 100% our responsibility. I realized that my work in the area of productivity was important, but we can't manage time. And I learned that we can't manage time, because you and I know time's going to happen whether we like it or not, but we can manage our attention. And that's why I think attention pays, because when people pay attention, their relationships are deeper. Companies make more money when they actually pay attention to their clients. They retain the top talent when they pay attention to those people, and they invest, as you said, in training and development. So I think it pays in many, many different ways, not just commercially, not just in profit, but also in the relationships and the longevity of brands.
Which is where the invincibility comes in.
You bet.
When you pay attention to, let's talk about, you're saying so the relationships, the processes, pay attention to your risk, to your vulnerabilities. Yes. Through my lens, as well as pay attention to risk and vulnerabilities, not just on a high level, but when business strategy changes, or when new products are launched, or this is kind of what frustrates me, is that it's not encompassed into the culture. And when you talk about paying attention, even just looking at relationships, I'm always talking about crisis. People would ask me all the time, what industry do you specialize in? And you can relate to this, is crisis management is about people. Business is about people. So I don't specialize in an industry. My work is across the spectrum. Crisis management is about people. I specialize in that. Not in people, but in those relationships and what is entailed to meet expectations and demands when you're in your most vulnerable and worst position.
Right. And attention is about connection. So it's the same, right?
Yes.
Attention is all about connection. Attention for the people that work for us. I loved your book, Crisis Ready. I mean,
Look at us,
like,
both with each other's books in our hands.
I know. Well, see, it's mine's like dog-eared. I've like,
Oh,
it's such a
mine
good
is
book.
dog-eared and highlighted and
Right, yeah. So it's like a mutual admiration club. But I think there was a lot of things that I realized that I needed to also think about paying attention to when I read your book. And that is my role. I've chosen a very public profile role. I've chosen a career where I stand in front of thousands of people on an annual basis and I tell them what I think. And so, there's no more vulnerable thing, than publishing a book which says, hey, by the way, here's what I stand for in the world, right? And so I also realized that every time there is a post, every relationship I have, all of these things, when you think about relationships, people pay attention to those you associate with as well, right? And so I even think in the choices you make around the people you surround yourself with have a huge impact on who you are and how you show up in the world. And so I think that people are always paying attention, whether they realize it or not. Maybe they're not paying the right level of attention to things. And I think attention as a word gets a bit of a bad rap. I think what's happened is because in our social media world where everyone posts their whole life online and celebrities have given this attention word a negative connotation, I really believe that attention is a positive thing. It is about connection, but it's also about making sure we're paying attention to who is important, what is important, and how we pay attention in the world, because you and I get that limited amount of time every day, and we also have unfortunately limited resources and energy. And so the one thing we can control is where we're going to invest that energy. Who are we going to invest in our team that's going to help strengthen our brand? Who are we going to invest in our personal relationships to make sure that we are better humans and we show up as a better version of ourselves? And then what are we going to invest in as far as even things like, what's our global responsibility? The companies that we're running, what is our global footprint? What does that mean? And look, you don't have to be a green card carrying, Tesla driving person to also be responsible for the way you look at the global component of attention. It could be attention in your community and how you're serving in that way. So you and I are very aligned in the way we believe this is important messaging for the world.
I agree. And to give an example there, just to build on what you're saying, one of my favorite clients, they're one of my longest standing clients, and that's just because I refuse to stop working with them. They do amazing things. And so this is a global brand. They've got more than 10,000 employees around the world, and they produce. So they have mills and plants around the world. And looking at paying attention to, in their case, and you're talking about community and just kind of how can you give back to the world, sustainability for them is very important. And a social license to operate for them is very important because they're based in these communities, and they're small communities where a large part of the community works at their mills or their plants.
Wow.
And one thing that I love about this organization is every single year, a specific budget is provided to every single one of those individual plants and mills for them to use however they see fit in the event of natural disaster to aid their communities, which is a crisis that is beyond their control. And yet they dedicate budget to making sure that they are there to support and lead and provide for their communities however they see fit. And what I loved too was recently they changed their policy where they do not need corporate's approval on spending. So they can spend it however it makes sense for that community. And that's above and beyond. It's not something they advertise. It's not something they shout from the rooftops. However, looking at paying attention to relationships, they know the value that they bring to their communities. They also know the values that those communities bring to their business and their people. So putting attention into looking at even when it's not, if there's an explosion and it's our fault, that's one thing. That's being crisis ready for something that's within we're accountable for. But when there's a natural disaster that we're not accountable for, that's another thing. And how can we serve our community and pay attention in that way? So this is why we align so well. I love everything you're saying. And I think that it's important for organizations to think beyond the typical, and I'd love for you to talk about that. So what do you see through your work? What are the right ways, or the ways that are the most adaptable and proactive and just opportunistic for that you see leaders who pay attention? What are the things? How do they change their scope or their lens to really pay attention to the right things? Does that make sense?
I think we need leaders to create a culture of intentional attention.
Ooh, I
And
like
so
that.
when I look at brands that I work with who've done a great job of this, Johnson & Johnson, Alex Gorski, CEO, Alex is someone who totally advocates for making sure his leaders have recovery time. He doesn't like his leaders to send emails late at night. He doesn't want them to be having meetings on weekends. And one of the things he said in an interview that I saw was, a tired leader is a boring leader. And you and I both know a tired leader is a dangerous leader because they don't make the right decisions.
Yeah.
And that can have incredible implications for many of the brands that you and I work with. And what I love about what Alex is talking about is he says, when you go home at night, I want you to look your partner in the eye, put your phone away, and actually have a conversation with them. This is what the CEO of Johnson & Johnson is telling. Now, this is a bazillion-dollar company that is truly changing the planet with the kind of things that they're doing and the research and the advances they're making. But it starts with Alex and his leadership team. And I thought that was really fascinating. I recently was working with ExxonMobil, and Exxon, I was with the safety leaders. They had a conference just for the safety leaders. Now, these people are literally trying to design processes to get people to pay attention to ensure that lives aren't lost. Like, their job literally is about saving lives. And they were paying attention by developing people. As leaders, we have to invest in rest and recovery. We have to invest in training and development. We have to stop these crazy requests of our team. Stop emailing people at night. Like, stop stealing time from their family and let them have rest and recovery. Stop scheduling meetings at ridiculous times when people need to be recharging. There's so many simple things that don't even cost money as a leader that we can do. So I do believe in rest and recovery. I do believe in having time off and advocating for vacation. Stop saying to someone they can have a vacation and then expect them to dial into a teleconference while they're on vacation. That is appalling behavior. Now, maybe they don't do it as much in Australia and Canada as they do in the US, but I think what happens in the US is they have this amazing work ethic, but they work hard all the time and they don't advocate for relaxation and rest. And so I'm on this kind of mission to create this culture of intentional attention. Stop the meeting madness, stop the email late at night, stop stealing time from people, and allow them to have some sort of work-life integration that allows them to show up as the best version of themselves. If people are tired, they're going to be boring. If they're tired, they're going to make poor decisions. We need leaders who are engaged and energized, and that requires this culture of intentional attention.
I love intentional attention. And it's not just leaders. I mean, it starts with leadership because culture starts from the top and goes down and then back up again. But your front line, right?
Yeah.
Those who are interfacing and own the relationships with your customers, with whomever that is, your investors, whatever department we're talking about.
Yeah.
So that runs through. And I love that. I love that. And there's so many levels of that. There's productivity. There's a culture where you're going to retain the best talent, which in and of itself becomes an organizational crisis if you don't have the right culture and you keep losing your people and nobody wants to work for you.
Think about, companies all want to be like the employer of choice or the best place to work. They want to make a list. But the way to do that is to provide an environment where you're paying attention to the team and they really are excited about coming to work. What we want is we need leaders to create an environment when Sunday night comes around that those team members go, yay, tomorrow I get to go to work, not, oh no, I have to go to work tomorrow. And that requires you to actually pay attention. It doesn't even have to cost you money. How about thanking your team members for the contribution on the project? How about a nice email recognition? How about a shout out in a team meeting? How about a handwritten thank you note? How about sending someone home early because they did a great job or they worked extra hard on a project? As leaders, we have so many no-cost ways to pay attention to people. Maybe just saying good morning and stop just, I think what happens, Melissa, is people walk into their meetings like this on their cell phone. They don't even look up. Like, stop it. Let's stop the crazy. So I think there's lots of ways to do it. And it doesn't matter whether you're a leader by title or not. I think everyone is a leader. Whether you are leading in your church, your community, your home, we have leaders, a very, very big word, I think. But I do believe it starts with each of us making those conscious choices about how can we be more intentional and pay attention right here, right now with this person. In order for us to attract the top talent, we have to be worthy of that brilliance, which means we need to create an environment where we invest in our people and they feel rewarded. attention to me is all about two things. People want to be seen and they want to be heard. If your team feels seen and heard, if your customers feel like you see and you hear them, they can't help but want to play with you. So that's what it's all about.
I love that. And the loyalty stands. And, building brand invincibility is about, I say that it comes from having conversations with our mutual friends, and people would say, what do your clients do with Clay, for example? We have a mutual friend, Clay Hebert. I can't say his name in English because it's French. It comes
You
out
said it
always French.
beautifully.
I know
Yeah.
I visualize it. He's like, it's an A and a bear.
Right.
It's a bear.
That's it.
And so we were trying to figure out the tagline for my tagline really last year at Influence.
Right.
And he said, what happens to your clients when, what do they do in crisis? And I looked and I said, I knocked on wood, and I said, my clients don't have crises. And through that discussion and multiple other discussions came the brand invincibility. But what does that mean? It means that it doesn't mean that negative events will never strike your organization.
Right.
It means that when a negative event strikes, whether it's, the crazy, unfathomable, this is us story with Crockpot, or it's a natural disaster, or it's a cyber attack, or it's you lose one of your CEO, for example, suddenly in an incapacitation, you're a public company, you're paying attention. So your team understands what risk looks like, how to identify it in real time. So you gain that leverage of it, or that advantage of timing. They understand, you've trained them, you've put attention to them understanding how to assess that material impact of that situation, right, and to respond in a way that actually fosters trust and credibility in the brand rather than depreciating from it. When
Right.
you're paying attention within your organization to that level, then you've achieved brand invincibility, because no matter what happens, I said before, crisis management is all about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
When you can manage a negative event to come out with stronger relationships, you're invincible.
Right.
So I love that. I love putting attention to, and what do you do? And this is a difficult question. It's a difficult reality. It might not be a difficult question for you, but it's a difficult reality for people who are listening or watching who aren't necessarily the C-suite. They're, in management positions or director positions, and they know that culture starts from the top down, and they may be listening to what you're saying and they love it because they get it and they have the crisis ready mindset, but they don't have the buy-in from the top.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I see all the time from my position. What do you do, or what can you recommend? And I have some ideas, but I want to hear, you're the attention expert, so I want to hear from you. What can they do in that position to empower or inspire or provoke change in a positive way?
So in my corporate career, I always believed that I needed to be my own publicist. And I talk about this in the book Attention Pays. I think that each of us has a responsibility to be our own publicist. Now, when you think about the role of a publicist, their job is to educate their publics. Now, often we only think of a publicist in the negative sense. We think a celebrity does something bad, so their publicist has to step in and do the damage control. But in actual fact, you can be a proactive publicist. And so what I would do in my corporate career is every Friday, I would send my boss 5 bullet points of what myself and the team achieved. It was my proactive public relations campaign. And I encourage everybody, and still to this day, with all of the executive mentoring I do in my corporate clients, no matter what person's title is, no matter where they are in the level of the organization, I ask them to do this. Every Friday, send your boss 5 bullet points of what you and the team achieved. Now, here's why this is so important. I did it my whole corporate life, and I still do it with an accountability partner today. What this does is you're proactively communicating the great news of things. Now, we all know our job is to make our boss look good, right? So if you have a boss, that's part of your role. Now, what I learned in my corporate career is often my boss would cut and paste my 5 bullet points into their report to tell their manager, right? And so it has this lovely ripple effect. Now, here's how it's also helpful. Is when you go to have your performance review and you want a pay rise, I would walk into my boss's office with 52 weeks of fabulousness and say, this is why you're going to give me a pay rise, because here's all the value that I've added to this organization. We need to track our own great news stories. And so one of the ways you can help proactively make some change is share good news. But it also changes your mindset because you're looking for great things. 5 bullet points a week, it's just one thing a day, right? And so you're constantly looking for, what's my team doing well? What is the contribution that I'm making? What's a great email I got from a client that says about the great work we did? And so to inspire change, it really starts with you, regardless of what your position is, regardless of how long you've been with the company. Nobody cares what's on your business card. Nobody cares what kind of title you have. Every one of us can be a change agent. Judson Leapley, a dear friend of both of ours, is brilliant in this whole idea of change and evolution. And so I love some of his strategies about really looking for these opportunities to make a change where you are right now. And so what I often hear is people say, well, this advice, I need my boss to know this, or I need my partner to hear this, or maybe my daughter or my teenager needs to hear this. Maybe so, but it all starts with us. Right?
Yes.
So I think we get to choose what we want the change to be. And we start small, but it has this ripple effect. Imagine throwing a little pebble in the pond and then you see those circles come out from the pebble. I think that's what attention is like. It's that little one interaction of attention where you paid special attention and you noticed something, and then you started to communicate how powerful that was. It has a ripple effect. What I always knew in my corporate life was this: anytime I needed increased headcount, increased budget, project extension, I always got it. And here's why. I proactively shared with my leadership what was necessary, what was happening, so that in the event that I needed something, nobody was surprised by my request. And so what I would encourage people to who are listening to this, think about, what could you do to proactively communicate how fabulous you and the team are and what you're doing. Now, some of you listening are thinking, hold on a second, that's like boasting or self-promoting. No, it's not. It's about communicating actively the value you're adding. I think a lot of people sit at their desk or their cube or in their office and they think, well, if I just do a good job, someone will notice me. Yeah. No, they won't, because they're so busy focused on their own responsibilities, right? And in middle management, I think it's the toughest of any in the organization, because you've got senior leaders who are telling you what to do, and then you've got to ask other people to do things, so you're kind of sandwiched in the middle, right? And so it's even more important that you show the value you add. You have to be your own publicist. You have to manage your own career. You have to share positive attention for the achievements of you and your team. So it's not, look at me, look at me, look at me, I'm great. It's not that. It's very much communicating the value you're adding. And then it makes it easy for your boss to consider you for promotions, extra responsibility, opportunities for, maybe cross-training, leadership development. And the other thing I would suggest is, if you really want to be your own publicist, invest in your own development. Now, it could be your company offers training programs. Do anything you can. It could be you want to do additional study. Does your company offer some help in financial aid in doing that? When I did my MBA, I didn't even have an undergrad. Like, I still don't have an undergrad. But my company assisted me to do my MBA because I was proactively staying in front of the right people. And the CEO of the bank wrote to the university and said, we know she doesn't have an undergrad, but we will help fund this if you will put her in the program. I mean, that's about that's attention paying right there for my MBA.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
what I want people to think about is, for you to get the attention you need for the projects and the team members you serve and the customers you stand in service of, you are in charge of that. You are your own publicist. And that's one strategy that a lot of my team that I work with employ. And I have to do that in my own practice as well. So I have to practice what I preach.
Yes. And I love so much about that. And it, talking about the ripple effect. So one thing that I do when I'm on stage is I talk about the lens, choosing your lens. The way we choose to see, the lens through which we choose to see a negative event in my context directly impacts the actions we take in response, which directly impacts the result of that event on the organization. Choosing the lens through which you choose to see it, choosing to find the positive, not only exactly to what you said, you're looking for it, but there's not just a communication benefit there is an emotional benefit that has a rippling effect throughout your team, both below and above, however the organizational structure is. That is so incredibly powerful to creating and living a culture. We were talking earlier about having a culture in a workplace where best top talent wants to come and work and is excited to get up on Monday. I mean, that in and of itself is life-changing. As an entrepreneur, we know that. I don't look forward to the weekend, and I love Mondays. Like every single day is a beautiful day. I wish that for everybody in the world. That changes your life when you see the world that way and when you live your life that way. And all of what you're saying has multiple impacts and benefits to a culture of resilience, a culture of a place where people are first, above process and a bottom line, where people want to go to work. And in doing so, just going, full circle back to crisis readiness, when you have that culture, people stand up and for the organization, and it permeates past internal straight through to the relationships with customers and with, every other external stakeholder, which is extremely powerful in times of issue and crisis management.
And I think too, it's kind of like if you have a great relationship with a person or a brand, and maybe they mess something up, maybe they screw it up. There's so much goodwill that has already been invested. I had a really revolting experience with American Airlines. But up until that point, I had amazing opportunity with American Airlines. I had always been a huge advocate. And I had a disastrous travel day.
This is recently, right?
It was very recently.
And
it was horrible. It was just horrible.
Oh, I felt so bad for you.
What was interesting, so if you ever want to see my life, just follow me on Insta, because pretty much everything is in my life. But what was interesting was, in the moment, I could have got like super crazy, but I tried to be charming and tried to stay calm, because what I knew was that brand has been very good to me, and up until that point I've had great experiences. And what that brand did, knowing my history with them, was tried to compensate in so many different ways as a result of what had happened. And so I think what happens is you're faster to forgive an individual or a company if you have goodwill. And so it's about really investing in advance. You often teach your clients about being proactive and getting these things in place before you even need them. And I think attention is the same. Attention is not a bad word, but I think what we have to do is we have to reframe it. We learn attention like when we're babies. So we cry and our parents pick us up. So we learn to crave attention really early in life. Attention's not a bad thing. I think what we have to do is choose, to your point, choose where our attention goes, right? Because wherever we choose to invest our attention, it can be good attention or bad attention. It can be a positive experience or a negative experience. We choose our response to that. In that moment with American Airlines, I chose to keep it together, be calm, understand that they were following a policy that they had in place. It was a really bad one. And I never put anything negative on social media, but that particular instance, I was like, this is not okay. This is totally not okay. And I think what we have to be aware of as individuals and as brands is now the world is our stage. If someone has a bad experience with your company or you as an individual, they can literally tell the world, and it can go around the world in moments. You talk about this in the book. And so I think it also places a greater emphasis on us and the responsibility on how are we going to share the messages we have in the world, our responses to things, our reactions to things, because we have that choice about being positive or negative attention. I chose to take a very negative thing and try and turn it into a positive. I'm still in the process of writing the blog, and I'm not quite sure how to frame it. But I know that there's lessons in all of these things as we unpack them. And we never know when that next crisis is going to occur. Nope. We don't know what's happening. We have no control of globally what's happening, but we do have control of how we show up in this moment, this one interaction, this one moment, to pay attention in this 1 minute. That's about being intentional.
Absolutely. And just to build upon that, to your goodwill point, it gives you the benefit of the doubt when something goes wrong. Exactly. And that's exactly what you felt. It wasn't an instant, from 0 to 100. It was, well, hold on, this is terrible.
Yeah.
But they've never done this before. So they gain the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. I never heard of it happening to anyone else before either. So that was kind of crazy. But look, it's not about American Airlines. It's not about the incident. It's about the fact that we get these choices to to react in the moment. We get these choices of what we're going to pay attention to, how we're going to treat humans in that moment. That's our choice. That's our responsibility of where we're investing our attention. My dad and I were having this great debate recently about scarcity versus abundance mentality. And so my dad's a school teacher. He's been a school teacher his whole life. And I had the opportunity to be in Australia with my family, and we were debating many things. My dad and I have debated my whole entire life. That's how we've kind of agreed to disagree on everything. But it was a really fascinating conversation because I choose to live life with an abundant mentality, meaning there's always enough work, there's always enough money, there's always enough opportunities, and I will happily give away referrals, and I will happily give away clients, and I will happily do it because I do believe in abundance. I don't have a scarcity mentality. Now, I also live a very fortunate life. Right? So I have a very adventurous life. I have wonderful people around me. But I think when you live in this place of abundance, you have the opportunity to attract more abundance, right? And I'm not talking about The Secret or whatever, no woo-woo stuff. I'm just saying it's a mindset. And so if you choose to think there's not enough, I'm not enough, there's never enough money, that's kind of what's going to happen to you. But if you choose to have this choice around my attention is going to be about abundance, then I think it has a massive impact on your clients, on your friends, on your partner, on the way that you live your life. And so that's what I'm choosing as part of this attention revolution. I want people to choose more of an abundance and put their attention in things that are bigger and better and greater for everybody.
I love that. And you said you live a fortunate life and you're very lucky, but all of that is choice.
Sure.
Everything
Absolutely.
that you have, you've attracted or you've gone out and got.
And people don't see the hustle and the tears and the crazy town behind the scenes, by the way. And, I was just blogging about this morning, is that we all have these slumps. I think we have slumps. And I think social media looks so polished and so perfect that we don't write about the ugliness that happens behind the scenes and how tired we get and all of those things. That's kind of just life, And so I choose to look at, you mentioned before that as entrepreneurs you get to wake up and go, oh my God, this is so exciting. Not everyone has that same opportunity, but we get to choose whether we stay in a job or if we go out on our own. And while it always looks so much easier when other people are doing it, it looks so fabulous, we can't live these lives of comparing and contrasting to others. We'll just go to crazy town. So I think you have to choose who you invest your attention on and what you invest your attention in so that you can get the return on your attention, whatever that looks like for you. There is no prescription.
Yeah, I love that. And choosing not just that, but so who you give your attention to, yes, but talking about social media, how you choose to show your attention or, talking about, and I love we have mutual friends, and what I love about a lot of these people is a lot of them are entrepreneurs, a lot of them are speakers, so we have commonalities between us, but they take their platforms and they don't just showcase the beautiful and the lovely and the picture perfect.
Right.
They're a credit to that. There's so many, and they'll take and they raise important issues, and they're fearless on the vulnerability that poses to them and their brand. And as a result, they're more powerful and impactful leaders.
I think too, what's interesting about our community, and when I'm saying our community, I'm talking about kind of that speaking and thought leadership community that we're part of. What I also love about that is we have this opportunity, and I know I do it, you do it, where we get to promote others. I'm very diligent about promoting others and their expertise, whether it's doing videos, book reviews, tweets, shout outs, Facebook tagging, doesn't really matter, but social media, every day, I have a personal mission to promote someone or something that is not my own work. And I always have my other policy is I give away a referral every day. And so this sometimes takes work and I've got to think about connections, but social media is the perfect way to also promote the work of others. And you might expose them to something they didn't know about. When your book came out, I had the opportunity for you to sign some for some of my fabulous friends and clients.
You were so supportive and amazing.
No, but it was really fun because I get to expose these people who may not have seen your work and how it is going to truly revolutionize curriculum in universities and schools. And so the connections I have in that space get to see the beautiful work that you do. And so I think what happens is we have the opportunity to leverage our platform problems and direct attention to others, not just ourselves. Because then I become a trusted advisor to my clientele. I become a go-to resource. So I still benefit, by the way. Selfishly, they still love me, but I can't speak for them every time. I can't do everything they need. So I have this amazing resource of all of these brilliant people that I can recommend and refer. And I think it's important to give attention to others and the work they do. It shows you as a trusted resource. It shows you add value. It shows you have abundance mentality, not scarcity.
Yep. And you're showing attention to the people and products that you support or the brands that you support, as well as to the people that you're introducing them to.
Correct.
So that's attention, that's positive attention and dedicated, mindful attention to two of the entities.
Yeah, I have this program where I have what I call systemized thoughtfulness, which sounds awful, I know.
No, it doesn't.
But I literally have a system to be thoughtful, and here's what that means to me. Every month I have a calendar appointment where I reach out to my 20 top advocates. And these are people inside my business, outside my practice, inside my industry, outside. And I am sending them something every single month. So when our friend Joey Coleman wrote a book, I had him sign a whole lot, and I sent a note to all of them and sent him a copy of the book. It could be that I watch a TED talk and I think it would be built, really brilliant for them. It could be an article that I see, I send it to them. Maybe it's a blog I've written would be helpful. It's not always my stuff, but every month I touch these advocates. And the reason this is so important is they don't know that it's happening every month. At least I don't think they've worked it out. But it's a system. It's a calendar appointment with myself. And the reason I've made it systemized is because I have so many projects on the go. Like you, I am in hotels, convention centers, and airports the majority of my time. And so I need a system in place to be thoughtful. And so I also have, even in my calendar, reach out to this person, make sure you call your mom, like whatever it is. And I know that sounds awful if my mom listens to this, but it's important that we systemize thoughtfulness so we don't just go through the days and think, oh, I must catch up with this person. I wonder how they're doing. I need systems in place. And for me, a calendar is a very easy system. So calendar.
It doesn't sound awful. It's the opposite. It sounds as though you care enough to make sure that in your busy life, you don't forget.
That's prioritizing attention, right? So
yes.
I think everyone's busy. I mean, we in America especially, we're busy like a badge of honor. Like you go to a dinner party and people say, how are you? And they're like, oh my God, I'm so busy. I'm so stressed. Seriously, it's just crazy. And so I think everyone is busy, right? But busy is not necessarily productive. Busy is not necessarily attentive. And so I think we're all busy. I'm just choosing who gets my attention, and I'm trying to prioritize the people who are important to me so they know that. And that's an important thing for me, because I also think too, I don't know if you've experienced this, it's people assume you read their Facebook posts, right? And so I saw some people recently and they just assumed I'd been tracking their whole journey on Facebook. I have a love-hate relationship with Facebook. Thanks to our friend Clay Bear, I installed the Facebook feed eradicator. So I see no feed. I literally see nothing on Facebook. I have to type people's name. It's amazing. I love it. And the only thing I see when I go to Facebook is a quote from like Yoda or something. And I now it gives me notifications still. And there's like one group you and I are part of. It's the only group I really check every day. But what's interesting is people assume you're reading all their Instagram stories, seeing their Facebook posts, seeing everything they put on Twitter. I don't. And so what I have to be diligent about now before I see people is I go and do a little search and sort of stalk them a little. I know that sounds awful.
That's really funny. No, but you're paying attention.
I'm trying to pay attention, but I think what's happening is we are assuming of others they're paying attention to all our social media vomiting that we're doing. They're not. People have busy lives. They're not paying attention. They're not sitting on Facebook all day. So we need to stop that crazy.
That's true. And I love the systematic attention that you do. I think that you keep saying it sounds crazy or it sounds bad, but no, you're paying attention to the fact that you're about to go meet somebody that you haven't seen in a while, whether it's, we're going to be in Dallas in a couple of weeks.
Right,
And there's going to be a ton of them, a ton of people, right, that we haven't seen.
A lot of research on my part.
That's what I'm thinking right now. I was like, yeah, no kidding, hundreds. But that is dedicated attention. And what that does, the value that provides is in your relationships. And if people are listening to this and wondering how it applies to crisis readiness and brand invincibility, that's exactly how. It's choosing, you're giving an abundance of different strategies and tactics and ways of thinking that goes to how can you show you care? How can you strengthen those relationships? How can you build really true value with your connections with, and if we bring this back to an organizational standpoint, with those who matter most to your business, that without them, your business would not function successfully? And how can you do that now proactively every single day in a systemic way if you need to, which I think that everybody does. I think that that's brilliant. So that in the event of, not even so that business is productive, so that business is profitable, so that relationships are real. And then if we bring it back to my lens of a negative incident happening, you have that benefit of the doubt, you have those relationships, you know those people. So it's not just about banking on relationship, it's about understanding who those people are, what they expect, and having that two-way dialogue already established so that you can meet, if not exceed, expectations and come out without a deficit of trust and credibility. So it all speaks to that. And I love everything that you're saying.
And I think, though, too, that our personal brand, whether we are in a corporation or we run our own company, each of us has an individual brand, and we get to choose how that is interpreted in the world. I love systems, a calendar. I literally have like a daily checklist. I mean, you can see it has things on here like write one referral, write one thank you note. Like, it's crazy, but literally I check them off. I mean, I know it looks so old-fashioned on a piece of paper.
No, I have a notebook. I do the same thing.
I'm so visual, right? I think that whether you are an individual having your own company, whether you are an emergency manager, whether you are in government, whether you are in law enforcement, whether you're running a Fortune 100 company, it doesn't matter what your title is. You are an individual with a personal brand within often a bigger brand. And we have a responsibility, too, to make sure that we are promoting how we pay attention, seeing and hearing people, and truly paying attention personally, who's important, professionally, what's important, and globally, how are you paying attention in the world of being responsible? That's why I think attention pays.
I love it. I love it. Neen, thank you so much. Where can everybody find and follow you?
The good thing is there's only one Neen James online.
This is true. Well, in the world, period. There's only one of you.
I'm very spoiled. Yeah. So you can definitely, if you want some free resources, go to neenjames.com. There's hundreds of blogs you can download for free. If you want to see my adventures in life and a peek behind the curtain, Instagram stories is the place that I post those. But I also am all over social media. So feel free to follow me in any of those capacities. Oh, yeah, you can get a copy of Attention Pays, which is my latest body of work.
And it is phenomenal and important and fits into the whole concept of crisis readiness. Thank you so much, Neen, for sharing all of your brilliance and wisdom with us. Really appreciate your time.
It's a privilege, and thank you for what you're doing in the world. It's making such a difference.
Thank you.